The fall that leaves no bruise but steals your confidence. In life, not every fall leaves a visible mark on the body. You do not always need an ambulance, a bandage, or pain relievers. But there are silent falls that do not cause bruises, and yet take away something far more valuable, the confidence behind every step. For many older adults, just one slip or a moment of imbalance can shift the way they see themselves and the world around them. Think of James Thompson, 76 years old, living in Seattle. He once cherished his morning walks around the neighborhood with his little dog. Each day he would stroll down familiar streets, stop at the corner coffee shop and chat with neighbors. But one afternoon, while stepping down the front steps of his house, he slipped. No broken bones, no bleeding, but from that moment on, each step became uncertain. He began to look down more often, walked more slowly, and always searched for something to hold on to. The streets he once knew by heart suddenly felt unfamiliar, as if they were turning against him with every crack and curb. Then there is Eleanor Brooks, 70 years old, from Chicago. She had always been proud of her ability to go grocery shopping, tend to her flower garden, and play with her grandchildren. But one day, while stepping across the living room doorway, with a tray of water in her hands, she nearly fell. No one was hurt, but the worried look in her son's eyes made her suddenly feel more fragile. From then on, she began moving more cautiously. She avoided uneven surfaces and reminded herself constantly to be careful. James and Eleanor are not alone. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 800,000 older adults in the United States are hospitalized each year due to falls. What many people do not realize is that most of these falls are not caused by serious illness, but by small and quiet changes in the way we move. Shorter steps, eyes looking down, arms barely swinging, shoes that are too soft making the feet lose connection with the ground. Over time, these small things can slowly turn a strong and steady body into one that is vulnerable to just a single misstep. The good news is that not all falls are unavoidable, and you do not need medicine equipment or an expensive gym to rebuild your confidence. You only need to relearn how to walk the right way, just like James and Eleanor did. In this article, Light of Wise Elders, we'll share 7 simple yet effective tips used by thousands of older adults around the world to walk more confidently. There are no complicated exercises and no need for strong physical strength. Just a few minutes each day and a small shift in awareness. Tip number 6 will be especially important. It reveals a common mistake made by more than 90% of older adults that increases their risk of falling without them even knowing it. If you have ever hesitated before stepping down a stair, if you have ever held on to a handrail longer than needed, if you have ever skipped a walk because of fear, then this article is for you, because sometimes one small change in how you walk can open up a whole new world of freedom and safety right beneath your feet. Tip 1. Step. Hip width apart, not like walking on a tightrope. After slipping on his front steps, James began walking differently. No one told him to. No doctor gave instructions. But the instinctive fear made him take shorter steps, placing one foot almost directly in front of the other, as if walking along a thin rope. He did not realize it. He only noticed that he was moving more slowly. His shoulders swayed a little, and sometimes he felt off balance even when walking across a flat floor. He thought it was just aging. Weaker knees, a slightly hunched back, worsening eyesight. But during a movement class at the local community center, a physical therapist asked him, "James, how far apart are your feet when you walk?" James thought for a moment. "Probably very close together." The therapist smiled. "That is the problem. Studies show that walking with the feet too close together, nearly in a straight line, increases the risk of falling for older adults. When the distance between your feet is too narrow, the body loses a solid foundation, like standing on a narrow plank. The instability does not come from weak muscles, but from the feet not providing a stable base. What is surprising is that many people like James end up walking this way without even knowing it. The therapist taught him a simple exercise called the double track. James placed 2 strips of colored tape on the floor, spaced exactly the width of his hips. Every day he walked back and forth along these rails for 5 to 10 minutes, making sure each foot stayed on its own track and did not cross into the middle. At first it felt strange, as if he were stepping too wide, but after a week, his body adjusted. He no longer needed the tape. His feet had learned to keep a natural distance on their own. When you step with hip-width spacing, your body forms a strong rectangle at the base. This supports a straighter, back-relaxed shoulders and a steady head without constant correction. In contrast, walking with feet too close together turns your body into an inverted triangle, more likely to wobble when faced with uneven surfaces. For James, this lesson was more than a walking technique. It was a way to regain a sense of safety. Now, every morning when he steps outside, he no longer looks down at the ground. He looks forward, and with each step he reminds himself that he is still in charge of his journey. Tip 2. Pause for 3 seconds before you turn. One morning, James Thompson simply intended to turn around and grab his coffee cup from the kitchen counter. It was a familiar motion, something he had done thousands of times before. But this time his feet did not turn in sync with his upper body, causing him to stumble and grab the edge of the counter to keep from falling. There was no injury, but that moment filled him with fear. From then on, whenever he needed to turn, he hesitated. His steps slowed down, as if his body was no longer working in harmony with his mind. At a local community event, a fitness instructor explained that these transitional moments, such as turning, changing direction, or stepping from hardwood floor to carpet, are when the body is most vulnerable to losing balance. As we age, our nervous system and muscles need more time to coordinate. If we move too quickly, our feet may not be ready to follow, increasing the risk of a fall. The solution is simple. Just pause for 3 seconds before changing direction. 3 brief seconds to breathe, to let your eyes refocus, to let your feet sense the ground and re-establish stability. At first, James found the idea strange. Pause for 3 seconds. Isn't that just making myself even slower? He wondered. But the instructor encouraged him to try it at high-risk spots around the house, the dining table corner door thresholds, or the top of the stairs. James placed small yellow stickers in these areas as gentle reminders. Pause, breathe, then move. After just a few days, he noticed the difference. One afternoon when stepping from the living room to the front porch, where the wooden floor changes to slick tile, he paused for 3 seconds. In that moment, he realized his feet were not yet fully stable. Had he turned too quickly, he might have slipped. Gradually, the habit of pausing became second nature. He no longer needed the stickers. Every time he prepared to turn, he took a gentle breath, looked ahead, and let his body be ready. Those 3 seconds did more than help James avoid falling. They gave him back a sense of control, something he thought he had lost after the stumble. Slowing down does not mean getting weaker, he said. It is my way of reminding myself that I am still in charge of every step I take. Tip 3. Wake up your arms. Swing them in rhythm. After the stumble on his front steps, James Thompson began changing the way he walked without even realizing it. He often kept his hands in his coat pockets or folded tightly across his chest, especially on chilly mornings. He believed this made him feel safer, but in reality it made his steps less stable. During a community center class, the instructor noticed and asked, "Do you let your arms swing naturally when you walk?" James thought for a moment and shook his head. "Probably not. I never really pay attention." The instructor explained that swinging the arms while walking is not just a habit. It is a built-in way the body maintains balance. When the right foot steps forward, the left arm swings forward and vice versa. This coordination reduces swaying, stabilizes the hips, and makes each step smoother. When the arms stay still, the body loses its natural counterbalance, making every step feel more unsteady. This is especially true for older adults. James was shown a simple technique. Bend the elbows at about a 45-degree angle, and let the arms swing gently with each step. Not too far forward, no higher than the belly, and back, just to the hip. At first it felt awkward, like he was relearning how to walk. "I thought I must have looked silly," he laughed. But the instructor encouraged him to practice for 5 minutes each morning, walking down the hallway at home. He imagined his arms as the rhythm to an old familiar song, moving in harmony with his steps. After just a few days, he noticed a difference. His steps felt lighter. The tension in his shoulders started to fade. His wife even remarked, "You walk more smoothly now, like when we used to stroll through the park." For James, swinging his arms was more than just a walking technique. It felt like waking up his entire body. Each morning he let his arms relax and move with rhythm, feeling the energy in every step. "My arms are no longer asleep," he said. "They remind me that I can still walk strong even at this age." Tip 4. Look ahead, not down. Eleanor Brooks, 70 years old from Chicago, had always taken pride in being careful. But after nearly tripping over a doorway threshold, she began looking down at the ground every time she walked. She thought that keeping her eyes on the floor would help her avoid obstacles and stay safe. Over time, though, this habit caused her back to hunch, her neck to ache, and her steps to feel heavier. One afternoon at the park, her granddaughter held her hand and asked, "Grandma, why are you looking at the ground? Don't you want to see that beautiful tree?" The innocent question made Eleanor pause. She realized she had been missing the world around her. At a community gathering, a physical therapist introduced a technique called the 3-point gaze. First, look about 6 to 10 feet ahead to spot any obstacles. Second, shift your gaze farther out, about 30 to 50 feet, to help maintain good posture. Third, use your side vision to stay aware of your surroundings without needing to tilt your head down. Eleanor was hesitant at first. She worried about not watching her feet. "What if I trip?" she wondered. But the therapist encouraged her to practice in familiar places like the hallway at home. After just a few sessions, she noticed the change. When she lifted her head, her back straightened, her steps became steadier, and the tension in her neck eased. To her surprise, looking farther ahead not only helped with balance, but also gave her more confidence. She started noticing trees, park benches, and the smiles of passers-by, instead of just staring at the sidewalk. One neighbor even said, "Eleanor, you look more youthful when you walk now. Looking down too much pulls the head forward, causes the shoulders to slump, and throws off the body's center of gravity. In contrast, looking ahead keeps the spine upright and helps make every step feel lighter." For Eleanor, this technique was more than a way to prevent falls. It was a way to hold her head high, both literally and emotionally. "I am not just walking," she said. "I feel like I am living each moment fully, as if growing older can still be beautiful." Tip 5. Choose the right shoes and wake up your feet. Eleanor Brooks had always loved her soft, slip-on shoes. They were easy to wear and felt gentle on her feet. But after nearly tripping over a doorway threshold, she began to wonder if those shoes were part of the problem. One morning while walking on a bumpy stone path in the park, she felt as if the soles of her feet had lost their connection to the ground. She did not trip, but she had to stop walking, worried by how slowly she reacted. She asked herself, "Are these soft shoes actually making me more unsteady?" At a community health consultation, a physical therapy specialist explained, "The wrong shoes can cut off the conversation between your feet and the ground. When your feet cannot sense the surface, your body loses balance more easily." The specialist gave her 3 key tips for choosing proper footwear. First, low and wide heels, no more than 1 inch high. Second, flexible soles at the front, so the shoe bends naturally with the foot. Third, secure closures like laces or Velcro straps to avoid loose slip-ons. Eleanor bought a new pair of shoes that met all these criteria. The first time she wore them, she could feel every little pebble beneath her feet. It was as if her feet had been awakened, but she did not stop there. The specialist recommended 3 simple foot exercises to do each morning. First, curling and stretching the toes, like saying good morning. Second, using her toes to pull a small towel across the floor. Third, picking up tiny marbles and placing them in a cup. "It feels like I am playing with my grandkids." She laughed. After 2 weeks, she walked more confidently on grass, uneven sidewalks, and even gravel paths. Her feet now seemed to talk to the ground, sensing every small change ahead of time. According to the Journal of Sports Medicine, Wearing proper shoes and doing foot exercises can improve balance reflexes by up to 15%. For Eleanor, the right shoes were not just a piece of clothing. They were a bridge to confidence. "My feet can speak now," she said, "and I have learned how to listen." Tip 6. Walk as wide as your hips, not in a straight line. Eleanor Brooks, 70 years old from Chicago, had always believed that walking, with her feet close together, looked tidy and graceful. But after nearly tripping, she began to notice that she often felt unsteady when walking on uneven paths or thick carpet. One morning as she stepped across the garden behind her house, she felt her hips wobble slightly on the uneven stone path. She had to stop. She did not fall, but the sense of unease made her wonder, is there something wrong with the way I walk? At a local wellness session, a physical therapist pointed out that walking, with feet too close together almost in a straight line, is a common mistake among older adults. "You are walking like you are on a tightrope," the therapist said. "That narrows your base of support and makes it easier for the body to sway." Studies show that over 90% of adults over age 65 unconsciously begin walking with a narrower stance, which doubles their risk of falling. The therapist introduced her to a simple exercise called the double track. She placed 2 strips of colored tape on the floor, spaced the width of her hips apart. Each day she walked along these 2 rails for 5 minutes, keeping each foot on its own track and never stepping across. At first it felt strange, as if she were walking too wide, but after a few sessions, her steps began to feel more stable, like they were supported by a wider foundation. Her hips stopped swaying, her shoulders relaxed, and she no longer had to tense her body to stay balanced. After a week, she no longer needed the tape. The sense of the double track had become part of her muscle memory. She walked confidently over gravel paths in the park without hesitation. "I do not walk faster," she said, "but I walk better." This technique, known as a wider base of support, helps the body form a strong, rectangular foundation that resists sideways shifts or unexpected changes in the surface. For Eleanor, this lesson was not just about how to walk. It reminded her that staying steady in older age sometimes means giving yourself a little more room, in both the physical and emotional sense. Tip 7. Slow down when changing positions. One morning, Eleanor Brooks stood up from her sofa to grab a book from the shelf. It was something she did every day, but this time as she rose, she felt dizzy. Her legs wobbled, and she had to grab the arm of the chair to keep from falling. No one saw it happen. There were no injuries, but the moment left her in silence. She asked herself, why are simple things that used to feel easy now making me lose balance? At a local community event, she shared the experience with a fitness specialist. The specialist explained that changing positions, from sitting to standing, from standing to walking, or from walking to turning, is one of the moments when the body is most likely to lose balance. As we age, our blood pressure and nervous system need more time to adjust. Moving too quickly can cause the legs to feel unsteady, increasing the risk of falling. The solution is simple. Pause for 3 seconds before each transition. 3 seconds to breathe, gently engage the core. Look ahead and feel the ground under your feet. Eleanor gave it a try, although at first, those 3 seconds felt like a full minute. She placed small notes with the word slow on her sofa, her bedside table, and the bathroom door. Every time she saw them, she paused, took a breath, let her eyes find direction, and grounded her feet. At first, she felt like she looked sluggish, but after a few days, she noticed something. Pausing helped her avoid that unsteady feeling when standing up. According to the American Heart Association, nearly 20% of people over 70 experience posture-related blood pressure drops, and this simple technique significantly reduces the risk of falling. After a week, she no longer needed the reminder notes. The 3-second pause had become instinct. One day at the park, she ran into James. They both stopped before a small step and smiled, as if they understood one another. For Eleanor, those 3 seconds were more than just a method. They were a gentle reminder that she still had control over her body. Slowing down, she shared, is how I tell old age, that I am still in charge of every step I take. Conclusion. 1. Small step, a world of freedom. These 7 tips do not require strength or special equipment. With just a little patience and awareness, James and Eleanor regained their confidence with every step they took. They did not become young again, but they learned how to take control of their bodies, something many older adults believe they have lost. If you have ever hesitated at the edge of a step, if you have held onto a handrail longer than needed, if you have skipped a walk out of fear, remember this: it is never too late to begin again. A wider step, a longer gaze, a quiet pause. These small changes can open up an entire world of freedom and peace beneath your feet. Share this story with your loved ones. Leave a comment and subscribe to Light of Wise Elders to receive more gentle yet powerful lessons for a meaningful and vibrant journey through your golden years.